So today's session, we're talking about how to sell virtual CFO services. We're excited. There's so much interest in the topic. A couple administrative items to go before we jump right in. So today's session, we're eligible for a 1 CPA credit. You do have to attend the entire 50-minute session, and there are 3 polling questions that you'll need to answer. If you're doing that, CPE certificates are going to be sent out to the people who do meet that criteria. There's a question function in the GoToWebinar session, so if you have questions, please use that. I'll be monitoring that during the call, and we'll try to get as many answered during as we can, and then we've also got a little bit of time at the end for some question answer time. One of the really common questions that we get when we do CPE sessions is, what about slides? What about replay and video? An email is going to be sent by tomorrow that you'll have both the slides that we review today and replay information. I'm Tom Wadelton. I work with Summit CPA Group, and I'm one of the presenters today. I'm joined by Jody Grunden and Adam Hale. You'll get to know them just a little bit as they do their presentations. The topic today, there's a lot of interest in people expanding their CPA practice beyond tax and attestation services. CPAs talk about when become trusted advisors, being that first call when a client has a need so they can give input. A lot of today is talking about what those services look like, how you can sell them, and then what a practice would look like. We're going to show significant opportunity for growth for your business with this. You can add significantly to your top and your bottom line. And so this is what we're going to talk about. Before we get into this, I'm going to give a little bit of overview about the Summit story. And then we're going to talk about marketing for growth strategies. We're going to talk about sales process and delivery. And then we're going to finish with just some key takeaways that kind of wrap up what we're talking about today. So a little bit about Summit and who we are. So the firm was founded in 2002. By Jody Grunden, who is our CEO, and Adam Hale, who is the COO of the company. In 2013, we became a fully distributed firm. So I know in the past couple months, many people have been working from home, and we've all gotten a taste of the remote ability. Our firm was remote before that time, and we'll talk a little about some of the advantages that we think that it's given us for that. So since that 2013 time, we've grown to over 50 members across the entire United States. So a tremendous amount of flexibility that we have when we do that. So getting talent from all over the country, also having clients from everywhere. So just an example of that, from individual team members, they can obviously work from anywhere they have an internet connection. So we've had an individual who traveled around the country in an RV and would stay at national parks but work during the day, and that gave her that flexibility. She went on to live in a houseboat after that point. So kind of wherever she wanted to be, she could be anywhere. It opens up for clients. If I just look at today, I work in Indiana, but had a meeting with 2 peers who were in Colorado, the other was in New York, then jumped to a different meeting with someone from Arizona and Texas, a client call in Atlanta with a coworker that was in Colorado. So I'm here, but after this, I've got a meeting with the clients that are in Vancouver and Toronto, Washington, DC, back to Illinois, and then Seattle. Just really easy to jump kind of between things. And that's a somewhat normal day, even though it's a lot busier in meetings than where I usually am. For that. So that's a little bit who we are. So what services we provide as a firm, 80% of what we do are the virtual CFO services. It's really the staple of what we do as a firm. For attestation, we do 401k audits. That's the other portion of our business. And we're getting into CPA firm coaching, including part of today's session, but a lot of interest in what we're doing, and we're really happy to share the kind of things that we do. So introduced Virtual CFO Services back in 2004. So at that time, that really wasn't a term that people knew about. And so that was developing and educating people what that meant. We learned an awful lot in doing that. Today, more than 100 clients, and the average client, new client that we're having is bringing in more than $60,000 worth of revenue. So you'll hear as we sell it, but we've got many of our clients and we're helping them compare it to having a full-time or part-time CFO, replacing a controller, other things, because those are all the different services that we're providing and services that we think others can provide as well. So our current pace, 21 new virtual CFO clients per year. So part of the selling is a very big part of our practice, and so is marketing. And so that's what we're talking about today, and kind of how that works in. Typical client, so $1 to $20 million worth of top line revenue. So big enough that they can afford, and it makes sense to have that dedicated financial service, dedicated people helping them with that. Located anywhere, we already talked about the remote part of our business, but the average client sits around that $4 million range that we have. So let's talk a little bit about kind of how we divide up our services. So if we look at 100% of our business, just a little bit bigger than CFO services, controllership services. So producing a financial statement for clients, helping them with their forecast, helping them with kind of general controllership activities, making sure their financial records are in good shape. A very large portion then go with the CFO services. So in addition to the controller there, we're helping them lead several strategic conversations, like how does their sales pipeline look? A very frequent review of their forecasting, helping them do modeling around their forecast. Any other areas where CFOs might focus, like financing, banking relationships, insurance, corporate structure, buying and selling businesses, anything you would expect someone to ask their CFO, are the kind of things that people are asking us to do. And then we have a small portion that use transactional services, and that is primarily producing financial statements for clients.
And just to chime in there, Tom, if you don't mind, I would say that a lot of times the distinction between the CFO and the controller, and don't really get hung up on the names necessarily. These could be like red, yellow, green. But I think it really comes down to the touch, how often we're meeting with the clients. But the majority of that 20% transactional clients, I think, are more legacy clients. So people that have been with us for a really long time. So it kind of skews the numbers a little bit over the last few years. It's definitely primarily CFO and controller clients, I'd say.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Adam, about touch, that usually 1 to 2 meetings per month if we're in the controller space, and then around 4 to 6 meetings per month in the CFO space. That often includes participating in a leadership meeting. So that gives you some idea when we talk about touch. And then, of course, any of these services, if they want to pick up the phone and call us, email us, Slack, that obviously is in there. But I was talking mainly kind of meeting schedule. So if they're picking one of those 3, then there's individual services that we provide that you can see. And obviously, people can have more than one of these in here. If I just pick kind of the most common, so bank recs and credit card recs are very frequent for us to do for people. A great way for us to just make sure things are being reconciled as we produce financial statements. It also helps with some separation of duties that we do. And then you can see taxes. So you didn't see taxes listed when I showed what we do as a firm. 70% of our clients have us do their taxes. We do it very well, but it's not the service that we go out and chase people for. It's more, we're providing your services anyway, we can also do your taxes. And that usually is for the company and the owners, is how we do that. Cash flow is a very frequent, so about half of our clients ask us to do cash flow. So once per week is the typical structure, helping them understand where their cash has gone and come in the past week, what's right in front of them as far as bills to pay, and then looking out 13 weeks, doing a forecasting and letting them know where cash is going to go. As you can imagine, these last few months where people's businesses have been disrupted a lot with stay-at-home orders and coronavirus, things like that, this cash flow has been a really important look to help people understand where they are and some really important decisions for them to make. If I track back a little bit, then bill paying is another one that about 1/3 of our clients ask us to do. So accepting bills and then going ahead and paying them. We'll do payroll administration for people as well, although we don't actually do the payroll, but we'll help them coordinate with services like an ADP or Augusto or maybe a PEO like Insperity.
Yeah, Tom, I would say, and to clarify for everyone, when we actually market our product, we're marketing one of the 3 top levels: transactional, controller, and CFO. We may get clients that don't want us to do any of these ancillary or accounting product services, and that's cool. We're cool with that for sure. But we do offer those because when we do price it, a lot of times they're trying to justify, hey, can I let go of my bookkeeper, or my bookkeeper just left and I don't want to replace that person? Can you guys do this also? And this helps them kind of justify, for a lot of people, justify, bringing us in to cover the service. Because for the most part, most of these clients or prospects have never had somebody, like you, that have been in the business and can really help them grow. They've never had us, be able to help them out. So they really don't know what they're missing, I guess. And so this kind of allows them to kind of sneak into it a little bit by offering these services as an add-on to the 3 top level services that we provide.
I think. Oh, sorry, Tom. I was just going to say, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were asking about, whenever we're going to sell these services, how that works. I often refer to this part as like the mistake in my selling experience. I always led with this stuff first. I put this front and center, and then I said, oh, by the way, you get all this VCFO stuff and forecasting, all the great value add stuff for free. I don't know that necessarily it was a mistake. It's just whenever you're dealing with existing clients and you're looking through your existing portfolio, as Jody mentioned, I think that this is a great opportunity to kind of explain to them the difference instead of just after the fact bank rec and credit card recs, how we can be an active participant. And then I think once they get a flavor for how involved you are in the business, taxes are a great example. I'd say we pick up less than half of our taxes when we actually go through the selling process, because clients are maybe a little bit afraid to get rid of it right away. By the time we get done with onboarding, that number shoots way up to 70–80% pretty quick. So that's just kind of an example, but I think that if you're leading with existing clients, this is, and working your current client list, this is a great way in for the VCFO service.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned, Adam, that it changes over time. And you're right, we've had clients, usually it's adding services, but there have been times where, things get really busy and they decide to have an internal person do that. And so having that flexibility of saying, sure, if you want us to start doing something or stop doing that, we can do that all under the umbrella of these services. So today we're talking about selling, and we've experienced significant growth in this area. And just as an example of that, if you look at these the bars indicate a 3-year growth rate, you can see really significant growth across this. Some of it's a selling process, a lot of it is delivering really good service to clients, but there are definitely people out there who are saying, is there a different way to run things within my financial organization? So I think there's a great growth prospect that's in here. So we can talk about whether or not people are happy, and this is one of the measures that we use. And I think one of the really key things about this is that, to me, this says that what we're doing in the selling process sets the right expectations with clients. So if you're not familiar with the Net Promoter Score, this is a survey that goes out to your clients. You're basically asking them, would you promote this kind of the services of, in our case, Summit CPA Group? And they come back with a rating to say, I'm either a promoter of this, I wouldn't say anything, or I might even detract and say, I don't think that they are doing a good job. We're asking people once per month what they're thinking. Just to give you an idea, the average in accounting is a 24. So it's better than the 0, I'm not doing anything, but that's the level. World class is considered a 75. And right now, Summit CPA is sitting at 85. So we take that to mean that what we're selling sets the right expectation with clients, and we're providing a really good service for them. There's obviously a high need of service if they're recognizing that this is something that they're getting a lot of value out of. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and launch the first. I'm sorry, Adam, you're going to comment?
Well, I was just going to add that I think that clients really, a good takeaway there is clients really enjoy the fact that we track that and monitor it and are constantly following up. So not only is it a good indicator of how we're doing, but I think the clients also take away that we care. And so, yeah, I think it's got a double impact there. That's all.
Yeah. And I forgot to say the follow-up that, especially if we get what we consider a yellow or a red rating from a client, it's perfect to then follow up with a phone call and say, hey, how could we improve that? And we get some really good feedback from them. I think they find that we're not very defensive about that, and then we can turn those things around to do that. So it's also just a great measure that maybe in meetings the client's not saying anything, but when you ask them how they're doing, they're pretty unhappy, and so you can kind of get to the bottom of that. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our first polling question. So we talked about the services that we provide, and so I'm interested to hear from others kind of what services you offer, and it can be multiple services. You don't have to pick one, but I'll leave this open just for a minute or two, and then we'll go ahead and close it down. So this is part of getting credit for today's CPE session, also to have people answer. So this is kind of looking at your business today and what kind of services that you're providing to people. And I'll remind people that we do have questions available if people have specific questions they want to ask us, and see if we can get to during the session. We'll answer those. I'll give it about 10 more seconds and then close down, and we'll quickly show the results. Okay, I see 90% have voted. Got about 5 more seconds to get that last one in. Okay, let's take a quick look at the results. So it looks like about 86% are in that transactional, sharing 65 in the controllership, about 58%. So a good representation of people, and looks like is, a little bit more than half to 2/3 of the people doing the services we're talking about, opportunity to grow those services, as well as some people hopefully wanting to get into them. That's why people are here doing that. Okay, Jody, you want to talk some about the marketing?
Yeah, sure can. Can you see my screen okay?
Not yet. Yep.
Okay, it came up. Okay, perfect. Okay, so going through marketing, this is by far the, I would say out of all the different things that we do at Summit, this is by far my favorite. Marketing as well as the sales side of it. So this is something that I have a lot of passion for. I'm going to talk probably fast, so feel free to ask questions. And unfortunately, I can't see your questions. So Tom and Adam will chime in, I'm sure, if you have questions, but definitely use the question thing over there. Before I start there, we just started up a Slack channel, and I think we have a lot of folks in that Slack channel. So if you are one of those participants, could you actually respond in the comment section over there real quick that you're actually part of our Slack community? I'd love to see how many people are actually part of the Slack community that's on the call today.
Hey Jody, why they're doing that, one question that did come across was, do you have to be a CPA to offer CFO services?
Yeah, that's a great question. Initially, we thought you did, and did in the fact that, will people take your credibility serious? But since then, we've actually changed that thought and say no. We actually have a CFO that's not a CPA. So I would say no, you don't have to. Does it give you credibility? I guess it's in the eye of the beholder there. But for us, we found that initially we thought yes, and now we're kind of leaning towards not really. Just have to be able to guide the conversation and be knowledgeable with the subject matter.
And Jody, we've had lots of people telling us that yes, they are part of the Slack channel.
Sweet. With the couple fun facts, 76%. I pulled this out of the CAS benchmarking survey that was put out in 2018. I don't have the 2019 one yet, but 76% of the firms out there apparently offer some sort of client accounting service. Not 100% sure that what we're talking about would 100% fit that mold, but that give you kind of an idea. And then over 50%, which is more interesting to me, actually are meeting with clients nationally throughout the entire United States and doing it without a physical presence, which was definitely a big jump for us. That when we actually started doing that back in 2004, we introduced the service, and since at that point it was a physical presence, it was one of those deals where we actually had to meet, right across from the client and talk to him or go out to the client. It made providing this level of service very difficult, but more importantly, it made it just about impossible to scale. And we were interested in scaling the business and giving that client, basically building this type of a brand. And so to kind of give you an idea of a few KPIs that we like to track and kind of give you kind of a comparison to what the industry shows right now. Last year in 2019, we took about 102 sales calls. Actually, we took 102 sales calls. Our closing ratio is about 33%, and our average client size last year is about $55,000. Which generates annual client fee of about 1.7 million. So we brought in about 1.7 million dollars of annualized client, our virtual, what we call CFO type level services that we picked up last year. And that was it's a very similar. If I went back to 2018, 17, 16, so forth, you would see a very similar pattern. You can kind of see our marketing spend is about 7%. So 7% of our revenue we spend towards marketing, which we didn't when we first started out by any means. We just couldn't afford it. And so I'll talk about that a little bit here down the road. But as you can kind of see with 2020, right now our closing ratio is about 32%, so real consistent to last year, and our average client size has gone up a lot, so it's gone up to about 67,000 is what our average client for this year is. Annualized fee right at about 872,000. So from January through June of this year, we've already added just right under $1 million of revenue to our top line. So again, spent with the same marketing spend. So then we looked and we're trying to find some statistics out there that will kind of show what are other companies doing. And per that 2018 benchmark survey, we found that the average client size for the CAS only, the accounting, back office accounting, would be roughly about $15,000-$16,000, which is way, way low. It's hard to be profitable at that dollar amount. So we're hoping that goes up. But the more telling thing I thought was that the marketing spend is just under 1%. So that's telling me that there's not a lot, and I'd say sales and marketing. So there's not a lot put into it, which could potentially be driving that that low average client size. And then the closing ratio across financial services, according to HubSpot, is about 19%. So you kind of see that there's a huge demand for what we're trying to provide, and this could really add a ton to your bottom line if you can actually get this to work within your company. Before we talk about that, before we actually jump in to talk about the sales side, because I know Adam's biting at the lip here to talk about the sales side here, the couple of the different different product niches that are niches that I would say is that you've got to be able to, and we really didn't see our growth start really ramping up until we niched our product as well as we niched our vertical that we were in. And with our product, like I mentioned, like Tom had mentioned, Virtual CFO Services, that was our product. That was our main product all the way from 2004 until 2013. Still is our main product, but in 2011, we offered another product to kind of see if we can get this to work, because it was working pretty decently. We were picking up about 4 to 5 clients a year. All the way through to about 2011, we thought, can we do this with with another type of accounting? So we looked around and we actually stumbled across the 401k audit as another type of thing that we tried to see if we can get that to work in this with our basically our structure and processes. And we found that we could. We grew it from 1 in 2009. I think we had our first 401k audit to about 10 401k audits within 2 years. We thought, hey, this is going pretty well. We quickly realized that neither Adam nor myself liked 401k audits. So we're like, now what do we do? Neither one of us enjoy doing this at all. So we got to figure something out.
And we weren't very good at it, let's be honest.
Yeah, we were terrible. And so we brought on one of our directors, Kim Moore, which lucked in, and she's done a phenomenally great job. And since then, we've actually using the same approach through marketing and sales, we've actually grown our 401k audit brand from 10 back in 2011 to we'll do real close to 200 this year. So it kind of gives you an idea that, hey, if you really put the right marketing into it, you really put the right sales approach into it, you can really monopolize, make this bigger. And again, it's because we niched that product. We don't do any other kind of audit. You come to us with a construction audit, no, we'll pass. A review, no, we'll pass. It's that 401k audit. That's the only audit that we do. Similar to the virtual CFO service. Someone comes up to us and can you do evaluation? No, unfortunately we can't, but we can help you find one. We can be that quarterback. And that's the important thing, distinction between it. We decided, hey, early in the game, we decided, hey, taxes at some point are kind of probably be done automatically out there in the cloud. 4 or 5 years probably won't be doing them again. So we didn't want that to be our niche product. So we thought, well, let's just offer it as a part of what we do in the virtual CFO side. So that's the big thing. So people come to us for that strategy in the virtual CFO, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. But the other thing that really was a big game changer for us is when we niched our vertical. It was one of those scary things because we were providing virtual CFO services as a general thing. Anybody that comes on, yeah, we can do that. And we were picking clients up, like I said, about a pace of 4 to 5 a year. We thought, well, that's just really hard to scale at the size we wanted to. And then at one point we picked up in 2011, we picked up our very first creative agency, web design, web development agency. And it just happened to come through my junk mail. And it was one of those things, I never checked junk mail. If you heard the story again, I apologize. But I went through my junk mail, found this email that said, hey, would you be interested in providing services? And I was looking, they want to sell us on a website, and you get all those spam emails and everything. And we read it even closer, and we're like, I think they want us to be their CFO. And so we reached out to them. And at that time, again, we were doing everything local. And I thought, well, it's worth a chance. They just happened to be in Rhode Island. We're in Indiana. And they said, hey, we love your website. It seems like you really are a lot different than everybody else. And we'd like to know if you'd be interested in being our CFO. And at the time we thought, geez, this could be a really cool game changer for us. Now we're working with clients outside of our, geographic area here. And I asked them a question, and I asked them, well, they asked me a question actually, and they said, hey, do you actually have to come out and visit us? And I paused a little bit and I asked them, well, do you want me to? And they're like, well, not really. And I'm like, well, of course I wouldn't have to come out there. And so it was one of those things that, yeah, I was like, yeah, don't want to visit me for any reason. And so basically it was our first creative agency. And so, and actually our first virtual CFO client, truly virtual CFO, where we actually could not go to their office. And it just happened that they were a distributed company as well, one of the first distributed companies ever, a company called Lullaby out in Rhode Island. And with that, we learned a lot from them, how to become distributed, but also in the fact that we learned how to provide the service without actually being in front of a client, how to break it down into weekly cadences where we're actually meeting with the client on a weekly basis and giving them the ability to contact us at any time as if we were right next door. So we want to make them have that feeling that, hey, we're next door. We're not actually, 10 states away, that type of thing. We can answer your questions and help you out, as if you were right next in our office there. And so that's the type of thing we did, and we did so well with it. And they actually started referring their friends and people they ran into at conferences that they attended, and we started picking up more creative agencies to the point we had, I'd say about 5 to 10 creative agencies. And then what happened was at one of the seminars we were at, which was actually a distributed company seminar, which there's probably 10 companies there, which is kind of like probably 10 out of the 100 companies that even existed at that time that were distributed. And they're like, hey, would you be interested in giving a presentation to more creative agencies and teaching them how to be profitable? I'm like, yeah, we could definitely do that. And so hopped into an airplane out into New Orleans and sat in front of about 30 creative agency owners. And in that time frame, we were able to break it down very easily on a non-financial basis on things that they could actually control and show them how profitable they should be, how much revenue they should generate, how much net income they should generate, that sort of thing. And it really kind of opened their eyes up a lot. They loved it so much that the owner of the leadership group said, hey, would you be interested in doing this again? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so then from there on, just kind of spawned, actually being more of a thought leader in this vertical. And that was really important, because now what happens is that we get clients that will come to us all the time and say, hey, we love our accountant, but you guys just get our industry. You guys get us. You understand us. And it's, yeah, we do understand, numbers. You understand utilization rates and average bill rates. Everybody in this seminar could actually explain that really well, but we were able to bring it to their level and show them, hey, here's how this actually works on a non-financial basis, and then something they could actually control. So once we actually decided that and went the niche, and since then that niche has really blown up. We have probably, I'd say 75% of all of our client base belongs in that creative agency space. And so it's really been one of those things where we get clients all the time that leave, again, their accountant and come to us. They'll spend $10,000 to $15,000 with an accountant, and they'll spend $60,000 to $75,000 without really batting an eye with us, just because of that vertical, that niche. And you're seeing it right now in the cannabis industry now as well. You're seeing a lot of new companies coming out, or a lot of CPA firms coming out in this industry, able to charge more because they understand the regulations, the laws, and everything that goes with it. Logistics, again, another vernacular, how much miles per and all that kind of good stuff. E-commerce, these are just some of the verticals that you could pick. There's like a bazillion verticals, but what I would recommend is, finding the one that you have the most passion for, and then start marketing everything towards that vertical. Hugely important, and you'll see your sales really go up. With ours, like I said, we were picking up 4 to 5 a year. Once we went to that niche, we started picking up an average of 2 to, I would say, 6 a month. So it kind of gives you the basic, the big difference there. Are you ready for 2 to 6 clients a month, and really focus on that vertical, really focus on your product. Last month, or actually this month, we've actually onboarded 5 new clients during a very significant time in the history of the United States with the pandemic going on. And so it kind of gives you the idea. It just basically shows you, hey, here's what you can do when you actually start focusing on it. So I know not everybody here has, yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick comment on that. So being a small firm, when you pick a niche like that, you're allowed to be a big player in that niche, right? Is they have groups where those people get together. At least with these creative agencies, they know who someone is because they know each other, they talk and things like that. So it's one way for small firms to compete and act big
for sure.
when you pick a small market like that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Because there's like I said, when you go into any kind of niche, you're looking at doctors or whatever. You could be a small firm, and again, just as Tom said, you could really be a big fish in that small firm because you have the knowledge that maybe the other firms don't have that perceived knowledge. Of course, they have the knowledge, but they don't have the perceived knowledge, and that's the big part of
Mhm.
marketing. So when we're looking at, I know not everybody here has that 7% of revenue budget that they have for the marketing expenses, and so kind of looking back at our, for those that don't have that, which is probably the majority of people, existing clients are the first thing that I would attack, in a marketing standpoint. The reason why is you've got that great relationship with those existing clients already, and it can really be something of a helpful, and they can really kind of help you help yourself, help the business, and that's kind of what we did initially. We went through and we tried to master the service. We thought, hey, we really like this client, a lot. This is something we really have hit it off with from day one. And so we approached them and said, hey, would you mind if we did this, added this extra meeting on once a month and maybe go through cash flow and that sort of thing? And they're like, sure. And so that's kind of what we did. We actually took all of our tax return clients, because back in 2002, that's all we really were, tax practice. And we started taking our bigger tax returns, breaking it up, dividing their fee into 12 payments. At that time we were getting our fee monthly. Now we're doing it weekly. And with that, we were able to actually work through all of our clients and really kind of hone on the 3 or 4 that we thought would be really solid and can help us out with that regard. And we actually fine-tune our craft that way. We figured out how to give a cash flow meeting, on a weekly basis with a client. We figured out what really they need to focus on to help us when we presented and crafted our structure of how we were going to present these virtual CFO services. And those clients really helped. They're significant into that. And we actually still have those clients today. We've never actually ever increased their price. And we did that just because we wanted to give a little bit back to them for taking that risk with us and kind of helping out. So I'd say approaching your existing clients, and you don't have to necessarily give the fee away free, but you can bump it up if you like, just a nominal amount. You don't want to scare the client away because this is something that you want to really get that practice on. I would say other low cost opportunities would be, like the Chamber of Commerce, B&I groups, vistas groups, and other referral groups. You'd have no idea how many of these groups that we joined over the years, and some panned out really well, which was fine because it's not a problem to take that risk when you're looking to hop into this type of thing. So I would actually approach these different organizations and do it. One thing that I would, it's not in this thing here, that we actually did, it really helped us out a lot, was we approached banks. Banks approach you all the time when I talk and that sort of thing. So we approached a couple bigger banks and we said, hey, would you mind gathering, 20 of your, business clients that met these certain criteria? I'd like to give a presentation on the 5 reports you need to know in QuickBooks. 5 must reports that every business owner needs to know. And they were all for it, anything that they could get their group together and really kind of help and contribute. And then we went and did it was kind of funny. It was just my firm administrator, Kathy, and I went, and she helped me get everything set up, and we presented in front of, it was about 30 individuals, and showed them how to really work through QuickBooks and get the reports that they needed, and showed them the right reports and all that kind of stuff. And it showed a lot of value. And we did that a series of times. We probably did that 4 or 5 times easily within a 2 to 3 month period, and we end up picking 2 or 3 clients up from it. So again, there's a lot of things you can kind of do to be creative, but the key to being creative in this thing is not going in with the idea that you want to sell this service, but the idea you want to actually educate your clients. I think education is the big key there. Once you've done that, once you're starting to work through there, as I mentioned, thought leadership, it goes all the way back to your website. I created the website back in 2004, and since then I've obviously handed it over numerous times from there. But from here, the website is the key, because it's not going to necessarily drive people to you, but it's going to be that confirming point. Hey, you know how to do, in this case over here, how to, the cannabis industry, and you come to the website, oh yeah, they understand the cannabis industry, they're talking about it all the time. Virtual CFO services or creative agencies, oh, I understand creative agencies. So it's more of a confirmation than it is a selling point from what you do in that regard. So it's really important to have your website kind of tell the story about yourself and your company. Other things that would be important is being on guest posts on different articles, or writing tons of articles. It's hard to believe, but back from probably 2004 through now, I think we've written an article a day easily. And I was writing those articles initially, and then we hired some people because I just couldn't keep up. It was one of those things. I wanted an article a day out, and it was just a blog to put on our website to keep our website fresh and so forth. And so I took a few hours of the morning, as like 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Horrible. Wrote an article, 30-minute article. It took forever because I was a really bad writer, and eventually I figured it out and kind of got in the rhythm. And then I realized, well, I'm not going to do this forever. And so hired went out and hired. Actually, Adam's mother was an English major, and she could actually write. So I thought, hey, let's hire her a little bit, have her take over this. And then she started doing it, and we paid her a little bit. And then we thought, let's get some more things. So we went out and searched for contractors out there, freelancers that would help us write. And so they would interview, me or Adam or anybody on the team, our clients, and then they'd get some ideas for writing, and then we'd approve those things, and they'd go out as articles. Really important to have that, because again, that develops that thought leadership. And make sure the articles are geared towards what you're trying to market. Don't talk about valuations if you've never done one. Talk about virtual CFO services. Talk about communicating with clients. Talk about all the different things when you do your articles about that. But articles are really essential. Guest posts on different things like the Forbes magazine or Intel, or not Intel, but Inc. magazine. All the different magazines that have some kind of pull that can bring more credibility to your website. Hugely important. Being those guests and doing tons of blogging. Speaking engagements is another thing. As we learn, kind of in a accidental way through giving the leadership meeting the speaking engagements, we start focusing again and contacting different organizations that we're part of what we considered our niche, and we're able to get speaking engagements with them. Sometimes you had to pay to be a speaker, sometimes you didn't. It really depends on the situation and really kind of what you can bring to the table, but we were able to put a little money into that and actually speak in front of tons. I can't imagine how many, if we counted up how many different engagements that we've spoken in front of it. Well over 100 to 200, I'm sure, over the last 5 to 10 years. So again, speaking, hugely important. Definitely promote it every time you do. Get pictures taken, put it on your website. Books, I would say reading books is a big thing. So when you're in thought leadership, the biggest thing that I ever, to be honest with you, it's one of those things that you read other people's thoughts, and then it just helps you be a leader. And when you're then putting your material together, using them and kind of piggybacking off of their thoughts. But it also is one of those things for our virtual CFOs. We have we want them to read all the time, because they get a lot of different ideas from clients that they can actually put into their stuff. So reading is hugely important. Or you can take the big leap of faith like I did up here and write a book. That was probably one of the hardest things I ever did in my life, was write a book. I told you I wasn't a great writer. Try writing a book when you're not a great writer, pretty tough. And with that, but again, it was geared towards our niche. And then again, the second book I just put out was kind of geared towards helping accounting firms do what we do. And that just came out just these last couple of weeks. We'll talk about that later on if you're interested. But thought leadership in books is huge.
You hated writing so much that you turned around and wrote a second book, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you, that second one was a lot easier. It was a ton easier than the first one.
Good.
Once you did it, I was like, oh, I can do that again. And I was actually even talking to Kelly. I think I'm going to write a third book here. And so she
it's a children's book.
Yeah, children's book with like a bunch of crayons and coloring. The other thing, podcasts are great things. Being guests on podcasts are huge. Just reach out to people with podcasts and see if they would, they're looking for a guest speaker. That'd be great to actually come on as a podcast. Or like what we did, we actually established our own podcast. Again, we did it towards each of our niches. Again, we did it for the creative agencies. We did it for CPAs and then 401k audits and so forth. So again, having a niche for that's really super important. So again, hopefully that helps on the marketing side. We're going to turn it over to Adam, but I think before that, we're going to get into a polling question.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and launch this next polling question as we've talked about this. We're really interested in how people think CFO services might change. So while you think about that, Jody, let me tell you one of the questions that came in around 401k audits, and maybe this is a quick answer.
Sure.
Does the Department of Labor have concerns about doing a 401k audit 100% remotely, especially maybe for out-of-state clients?
That was a good question, and that's and we've said no. They're always concerned. They're concerned about doing audits, any kind of audit. But we've been through a peer review. We've spoken to the Department of Labor and done a lot of different stuff, and they definitely do not at this point have any concerns with that one. And there's not many audits out there that have that.
Right. So I mean, you do have to be licensed in the state. That's a requirement. And you have to go through the peer review and all that kind of stuff. I think a bigger concern from DOL, whenever we got initially into it, is people that were doing 2 or 3 or 4. Like they really don't like whenever people just kind of dabble in them, because they just know they don't have maybe the expertise, which is why we doubled down and created a process.
Hey, so another question then. Someone says they're curious about our engagement letter. What about the scope? But then I think a key part of their question is the engagement letter a month to month? Is it a week to week? Is it a year? Do you want to talk a little bit about what our engagement letter looks like?
Yeah, our engagement letter is perpetual, meaning that there's no contract. We just have the statement of work and explain what we're going to do, and they have the power to quit anytime. But it's a week-to-week engagement letter, so we get paid weekly, and we zap their account every Monday for the exact dollar amount, because everything we do is flat fee. And we'll talk about that here in a second with Adam. But it is a weekly engagement letter with the ability for them to cancel at any time.
Mm-hmm. And peer review's been cool with that too. Like we floated that by them, and obviously they're used to the every year, every engagement kind of a thing, but we floated that by them as well, that it's a perpetual thing. So,
okay, I'm going to close the polling in just a minute or so. Adam, sort of a preview question. This is going to come up to your topic. That someone says, I've heard on your podcast that you use a spreadsheet for client pricing. They can turn on and off features, and you can develop pricing. And is that based on hours or then increase? So this is one that I'm sure you're going to cover. I'm not sure if you want to say anything about it now, but that's a question that came up that I think leads in well.
Yeah, I think it's a good segue to kind of go into that. I don't know if you're wrapping up the polling question, but somebody also had a question, Jody, about the frequency in the tool and response rate for NPS. You want to touch base on that real quick?
The NPS tool we use a tool called Customer Thermometer, and that allows us to shoot out a monthly red, yellow, green kind of to all the clients. They get it once a month. Our CFOs love it because they tell them, hey, it's coming out. The clients love it because we get about 60-some% response rate. So it's a pretty good response rate. Customer Thermometer would be that. NPS, we use HubSpot for the actual NPS score.
Yep. And as Jamie added, so we put that answer in there also about once every 6 months, we try to talk to the clients and do that. So it's not only the email piece. So let me go ahead and close down the poll. So this tells us that a lot of people are seeing a major increase in area. Sorry, let me go ahead and share this. A major increase area focus for the CFO services. Others see it increasing slightly, and a very small percent saying they don't think it'll change very much. So it seems like a perfect audience for how you sell CFO services. Adam?
Yeah, if you want to pass it over to me, Tom.
Yep, you've got it.
Okay, see my screen okay?
Yes.
All right, wake up everybody. We only got 15 minutes left, so let's close the deal. So I'm a big talker, so there's a lot of words, which will be great for afterwards, but I'm just gonna kind of blow through this stuff. I'm not a very good reader. Jody can't write, I can't read, so we make a good pair. So just real quick, whenever we talk about the overall sales process, obviously it starts with the prospect coming to us. I would say for me, the majority of my prospects that come directly to me come through email. I get a lot of referrals. Jody, it's probably a mixed bag. He's kind of the front person on our website. You're able to pop right onto our website and schedule a meeting with Jody, which is great. Which leads us to step 2, which is the automation part of it. So if somebody does come to me via email, I already have in my signature block, we use Outlook. I can just click a signature. It's got my calendar, kind of got like a 1-sentence, 2-sentence kind of, hey, great to meet you. And it's super quick, so I can respond fast. I'm not going to say we're candy in the grocery aisle, but we kind of are. Like when people have a need or a problem, you want to jump on it as soon as possible. You don't want it to sit and kind of work itself out. So it's important to be responsive as fast as possible. And then again, the automation on the website's great because we see in HubSpot that somebody's pinged us, and then 2 minutes later we get the calendar invite, which is great. And then the calendar invite, using Calendly also has Zoom already embedded right in there. So the client already has the details. There's no like, what phone number do I call? Any of that kind of jazz. Obviously, everybody's getting really good with video conferencing, so that's not really a problem. So we meet during, via video. Really hate it whenever we get clients that just join on the phone and aren't really sharing screen. That kind of tips us off that they might not be the best distributed client. Now, if you're planning on meeting them in person or doing something like that, maybe not a big leading indicator, but we prefer whenever we see the client that's, willing to get in front of the camera and chit chat, because that's an important part of our delivery. So while we're on that meeting though, we want to make sure that we give the quote. So the client never leaves without understanding what their pricing options are. And then whenever we get off the call, subsequently, we send them an email right away, just thanking them for the opportunity, giving them a screenshot of what we just priced out, and then make sure we regurgitate any kind of price points or any kind of pain points that they had. And then maybe if they were leaning one direction or the other in one of the options, we kind of speak to that. And then we tell them on that email also what next steps look like. So whenever you were talking about the SOW and the engagement letter, again, it's perpetual, it's flat fee. And we tell everybody it's just a service agreement, and that they can cancel at any time. We let the value kind of stand on its own. And so if they agree to one of the options that we've laid out, then we very quickly will put together that service agreement and send that out. We'll walk through that just a little bit in more depth. And then of course, the big win, hopefully you see it come back from your software that says they've accepted, and you now got to do the hard part, which Jody pushes off to the rest of the team, just doing the work, right, Jody?
That's exactly right.
Okay, so when we were talking about earlier, like our product, so there's a couple pieces to this. So whenever you're thinking about providing VCFO services, it always is important to provide options. A lot of times clients will feel like it's kind of a weird thing. They'll come to you because they want to know you've been there and you have a product or a service that's going to solve their need. But at the same time, if it's too rigid, then clients are like, whoa, I don't need all of that. So we learned that kind of the hard way too. I would say we actually started off the reverse. Everything was a blank slate, which was a challenge. I think that if you go to most websites, you'll see people have a couple options. This is typically kind of the popcorn psychology thing, where you have small, medium, and large. I don't think that's necessarily true for ours. It is more about how frequent we're meeting with the client and what we're taking on for the client. So for us, it probably really is like light, moderate, and large, frequent. So it's one of those things where we're not, the controller isn't always like 90% of CFO, so that it pushes everybody to CFO. Again, that popcorn selling psychology kind of a thing. They are literally just kind of priced out to small organizations, medium-sized organizations, and bigger organizations is really kind of how we look at that. But this is whenever we can be a little bit more of a sniper whenever it comes to handling their specific needs. We prefer if our clients have a back office support team. So we talked about that earlier, like that's oftentimes a way in, especially with existing clients. But whenever we get a client that's coming to us for a specific strategy need or feeling like they're missing something in their organization to kind of take it to the next level, we're always more than happy whenever we find out they have all this back office stuff under wraps. So this is kind of all those things that are offered in that quoting tool that we were talking about. We pull it up and we give them options. We explain the differences between these core things and decide which one we want to be at there. And then we'll let them kind of talk through, what, if anything, they really need here. So those add-on services can be very helpful, but they like knowing that they're there, but oftentimes won't do it. So kicking right into the actual meeting. So I had a couple meetings this last week. We always do everything. We try to do everything in like a 50-minute format. And like it says here, try to keep it to an hour, keep it short. I would say in the inverse, be careful. I've had it where I've given my calendar and I have a 30-minute option and a 50-minute option. And if they take that 30-minute option, there's just not enough time to get through the whole conversation and you'll leave yourself short. So really, whenever I say keep it short, also make sure you have the full hour. The video call is super important. Want to see their face. Make sure you're, listening to the client. We always let it lead with them. So we always want the client to start off talking first. And because you don't want to just, you don't want to prescribe something and not really know what the issues are. Like, hey, we do this, this, and this. And it's like, great, that's not my problem. Actually, it's this. And it's like, oh, well, we also do that. It's kind of weird. So make sure you're always like learning more about the client and then tailor your story around their pain points. So we offer a lot of what we do can solve the issues that they're looking at. But the challenge is if you're, the challenge is if you don't tailor that conversation, then again, it kind of gets lost in what value you're providing. So, and we consult throughout the proposal. I probably, a lot of times I'll walk away giving clients a couple nuggets of information. They'll say, well, what percentage is this? Or how often do we do that? I'll just go ahead and give them that information that they would learn if they were my client. And by being able to do that and answer questions for them or solve problems in real time, right on that sales call, they're just like, this is the kind of conversation that I need to have. This is what I'm missing from my business. And it's a lot easier sell. And then finally, build the proposal together. A lot of times, whenever you go and we'll talk through like, what if somebody says, how do you find out what their budget is and that kind of thing? A lot of times, if you just have to disappear and if you're slow to putting that thing together, like a week or two, one, you'll lose the sale. But two, sometimes people feel like it's like you're pricing them based on the ability to pay. And I know there's some philosophies with value-based billing that's kind of a thing. It's not really for us. We value-base the service itself and not really necessarily always the client. So we've been able to kind of take that out of the equation a little bit, and we do it based on the client size, the client needs, those kind of things, so that people don't feel like it's just based on ability to pay. So just a quick recap over here. Yeah.
Adam, I think you've answered this, but we have a question that says, how long is the call if you're pricing them? And do they see what they're choosing? I think it's still the hour, and yes, they see what they're choosing. Is that fair?
So okay. Whenever I was on a call, the other day, how it typically starts off, and this is kind of what we're talking about here. We have some soft questions and some technical questions. You don't really have to go through all these different items. These are just, good reading whenever you check out the slides later. But I can tell you, typically, whenever I start off a call in both of these situations, one, I usually pick on them for a second, or I pick on me. Or the other day, our tax director was on the call. I got a new haircut, so I was like razzing him for a few minutes. What that gives us the ability to do is kind of break the ice a little bit, and then I get an opportunity to kind of see what their personality's like. Because in this relationship and this business, it is important that you can kind of, jive well with the client, because you're going to have to be candid, you're going to have to be real, you're going to have to be the consultant, and ultimately we want to have that strong bond. So I can gauge within the first 5 minutes what I'm going into. Is it going to be a super rigid conversation? Is it going to be free flowing, relaxed, that kind of a thing? So what's up, what's going on? And then once we get through kind of that first 5 minutes or so of the meeting, then I usually just kick in and I just say, hey, go ahead, tell me a little bit about your business, what's going on, and how I might be able to help. And then I'll share kind of what we do, and we can see if it's a good mutual fit. It's really that simple. So these are some kind of rumbler questions, if you will, that you can kind of ask throughout the process or as they're going. But the clients are usually very good. Like, they'll give you kind of the background of their company really quick, and then they'll spill right into what's going on and where they see deficiencies. And that's really your ability. And we're taking notes the whole time. Usually if Jody, I think he has a very similar process than I do. We're sitting here taking notes, and we're underscoring what their pain points are, so that whenever we pull up the actual proposal tool, we can kind of speak to those very important things.
Adam, that sequence seems really important. To the client, tell me what's going on, how I can help you, and then I can tell you the services we provide. Is that really important to you, to do the first one, listen to them first before you jump in and say, here's all the things we can do?
Number one. I mean, I was always like, hey, look at all these great things we can do. And then you show them the wagon wheel of the million things that you can do and how you can do them. And they only care about 2 of them. So you just wasted their time and your time, and it seems maybe a little intense. So You're there to support them and solve their problem, so don't go first, ever.
Sure.
But then we do get into some technical questions. So if we haven't kicked over some of these things, specifically, like even if you're worried about how much money are you looking to spend, a friend of ours actually had told us a long time ago, one way to uncover that is, so are you thinking to spend about 200,000-300,000 for this, or what were you thinking? They'll be really quick to go, oh no, I could never spend over 50. I don't typically get into that anymore or anything. It is what it is. We place our service price ranges on our website intentionally, so people that are maybe tire kickers or aren't looking to spend that much are already kind of scared off, if you will. So they're ready to make that buying decision. Another thing that I do is whenever I pull up that quoting tool and I walk through how our process is, I have it already maxed out. So it might say that, you know, the service is going to be 150,000. That's not their service. I'm explaining to them how the tool works and how we're going to walk through it. So they've already kind of like right out of the gate saw, wow, that's a lot of money. And then I kind of am able to scale it back and fit it to them. In some instances, the client wants everything. You know, I had a client from Japan. He actually made me increase the price after I already had it maxed out. He's like, we're a little bit more difficult, and I'm thinking about doing another company. And he had me just start clicking on stuff, and he's like, yeah, that seems about right. I was like, okay, that'll work too. So those are great conversations to have.
And as you continue, I'll go ahead and launch the next polling question, but just go ahead and we'll let people answer while they're listening to you.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, the technical questions on the other side, whenever we're doing our pricing tool, are just, you know, how big is the company? How many people are involved, partners, that kind of thing. You know, we can also ask them, you know, what their current accounting structure is, because a lot of times the less sophisticated, smaller clients are on a cash basis. So getting them used to switching over to accrual is kind of a big commitment. And of course, we also want to know what software we're getting our into. If we're doing all the back end accounting, we really do push for the more simplistic stuff like QBO and Xero. But if we're not, we're pretty software agnostic. We don't make our clients flip over and switch. So just ran into an interior design company the other day, and they have some super convoluted just industry specific software, and we're doing Xero back office, and they were pretty happy to hear we didn't really care because we extract all that information whenever we do delivery. So I'm going to just kind of skip through there. I know we're kind of running short on time.
And I'm going to close the poll in just about 30 seconds. We got most people have voted.
Okay. So everybody got their CPE in. So everybody's probably going to be dropping here pretty quick.
Okay, continue on.
So yeah, whenever you're, like I said, I think the biggest thing in terms of the process, it's less about being super rigid on what you're going to say whenever you go into the call. Be ready to be flexible and fluid and all that stuff. The important thing is make sure you do have that process down, like we talked about. When you go into the meeting, make sure you kick it off with a get to know you, make sure their tech's up. That's your ability to like assess who they are, their personality, which is really important for us. Let them, guide them through that conversation to unpack everything that's going on with them so you truly understand and you can tailor your answers and your service. And then you can retrofit your service offering one of those packages based on their size or their need to push them in the right direction. So whenever I pull up our pricing guide and we have those 3 different options, the other day, whenever I was talking to that interior design client, I was like, hey, based on the conversation, I think you're a perfect fit, perfect size. They have about 50 people. I was like, I think you're a perfect fit for the VCFO service. Here's why. We can solve this, 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 and this for you. And we'll do this, this, and this cadence. So be ready to provide, what that cadence is and how often you're going to be talking. They're like, perfect, that's everything that we need. And then that person had all the back office. So I said, I'm going to skip over all this and I'm going to turn all this stuff to no. And they watched their price just go drop, 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 drop as I was knocking off all the back office stuff. And then of course they came back and said, well, maybe my COO doesn't want to do that one thing. Why don't you go ahead and option B, turn that on for us and see what that looks like. And then we got down to the taxes and they got to see it with and without taxes. They decided to add taxes. And by the time I got done, it was about a $70,000 client. They thought it was extremely reasonable and a lot less expensive than, because they kind of felt like they needed a controller but they didn't know if they needed a controller or a CFO. With our package, they get a team. We always do a 2-person team. One's a senior accountant, which is kind of the controller role, and the other one's the strategist, which is the VCFO. So they're like best of both worlds and a fraction of what we would spend otherwise. So they were really excited about that. And like I said, the follow-up email is should already be pre-canned as well. You can have a deck that explains your service and the value add a little bit. Send them back over your calendar or your phone number. Tell them to reconnect here soon. Jody's a big fan of no long emails, so he likes them to be like a sentence or two and just send an attachment. But we always do send that screenshot just as a reminder. And it is good to say, hey, like, you know, when are you thinking you want to make a decision? Don't let them get off the phone really or off the call without really knowing when you should follow back. And then you don't feel worried about following up next Friday or the Friday after or whatever. You can say, hey, well, I'll check back. I'll just put something on my calendar to reach out if I don't hear from you. Is that cool? They're usually like, oh yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate it. And that gives you your follow-up if you need it. So.
Adam, just do a quick check-in on time. So we were scheduled for an hour and we're at that point. We have done all 3 of the polling questions. So if people answer that and have to go, you can. We will stick around for some questions and we'll finish up these things. You'll also get the replay video and the slides that'll be sent out by tomorrow. So if people feel like I have to go, but I want to hear the ending, you have a chance to watch the video. We're answering some of the questions in the channel and we'll also do some answering live after that. Okay, sorry, back to you, Adam.
Yeah, no, I'll just kind of skip through some of that back end stuff and maybe we can follow this up with just a Q&A session, you know, at a later, you know, in a week or so, you know, if we need to really dive deep into specific questions. But Jody, just kind of turning it over to you, just in general, what are, you know, some of your best practices?
Yeah, so I'd say best practices for me, with everybody here, you really should need to figure out how to develop a niche, both on a service basis as well as a vertical. Doesn't mean you turn away clients that aren't in that niche initially. You need all the clients you can get to really master your practice. But once you start really focusing on it, and all your marketing efforts on it, I think you're going to see a huge benefit there. And that's all becoming a thought leader. You know, all the articles and books and anything you can do to get your name out there as somebody that really understands that vertical is huge. Start with your own current client base. That's how we got started. You know, it wasn't a magic pill. We didn't put $1 in and all of a sudden we've got all these clients. You know, you have to start really grinding and working with your existing clients and really fine tune your craft, and then you can expand pretty easily because your confidence will be there for sure. And then don't be afraid to spend money on marketing. There's a lot of times comes up, you know, hey, you don't want to spend that money to try this opportunity out. Don't be afraid to put a little extra money in there or spend that money, because it may not work out for you. Our record is, you know, we usually get 1 or 2 clients from just about really any kind of marketing effort we do, and that's been from the very beginning. So don't be afraid.
Cool. Yeah, I think for me, do your research on the client, even if they come from the web or referral. It does pay to, you know, get a little back end information, show that you care, you know who they are, you know who the players are. So I usually spend 5 or 10 minutes and just go through their website and learn as much about what they do and how they do it. That's really nice. Like I said earlier, never lead with you. Don't make it about you. It's about them. It's about solving their problems. So I think in general, we're always quick to like show off what we do, or they want to know what we do. Make sure you turn the tables and force them to have that conversation at the beginning, and then use their own words. You know, I think that's how you can kind of connect with them a little bit during the sales process is, hey, what I heard you say was this, this, and this, and here's how our service solves for that. And if you do that, I think you'll see really good results. And then make sure you understand your value prop. So really think that one through, because sometimes clients will, you know, they'll call out and say, okay, so what do I get for this service? Or what should my end result of working with you for 6 months or a year? So don't get stuck out going, well, you know, make sure you understand exactly what your clients gain from working with you, both tangible and intangible, because I think both of those are important to, and if you can get that rhythm down, it makes for a nice close of a sales call. Tom?
Yeah, I think part of what Adam talked about, people want that conversation. not a presentation. And we get so much value when we just listen to them, because they will go through and tell you exactly what they want. And if they're not sure, we can help them shape that. Adam talked about the value proposition. I think it's really important to make sure that you price appropriately and don't undercut yourself. It's too easy to say, I don't think someone wants to spend this. If you start comparing services to a full-time bookkeeper, a controller, another CFO, these services are inexpensive and people get the value. And once you set the price with the client, if you find out you can't make money, going back and saying, is it okay with you if I double your fee because I'm not making money, is a really hard conversation. It's a lot better upfront to say, here's my price. Allowing the prospect to control price. We had a question of saying, how do you price it in that very first meeting? If you're listening to them and you know what the parameters are that drive your price, they're going to help you walk right through and do that price. And so that's how you do that. And then as much as you can automate that process, that allows back-to-back meetings and say, I don't have a lot of work after, I can get this quote out to you to do that. So those would be my big best practices. We do have a couple of offers today. So if you want to join the Slack community where we can continue this conversation and learn about things, 4 months is usually $116. There's a promotional code for 4 months free to use that. So a great chance to jump in. We've got a lot of active people on there. Jody talked about his second book. That's another opportunity. So if you want to read more about CFO services and the virtual firm and what we're doing, you can get a 25% discount on that.
And then that has an insert too for, I think if you go the book route, it has an insert for 12 months free at the Slack channel. So
good.
Don't do this if you're going to do the book, because then you get a year free there. And then just one quick thing on the Slack community. It's only as good as the people in it. So don't be shy, ask a lot of stupid questions, just start rumbling away, just ask. I think we got a great group of folks in there, and I think that we'll all get a ton of value from it. So just ask away in there.
Yeah, so I think that the least thing I would do is it doesn't cost anything. Just join the Slack community. I think we've got 80 CPA firm owners in there right now, and the conversation has been great. Learning how everybody does things and learning from each other as much as learning from us. That's kind of I think it's gonna be a cool value for sure. Like Adam said, the book talks about the virtual CFO services and being a distributed company. So it talks, about what we did and how we did it, and kind of gets into detail about a lot of things that made us successful. Or and again, love to have you do both of these. With questions now, we're going to hang on as long as we have questions, coming up. Feel free to chat your question in here or put your question in the thing. We'll try to answer it if we see it.
Yeah,
looks like we got a ton of things. Tom, I'm going to go from there.
Yeah, I will. You do see the email addresses, so Slack's a good way if you want to follow up with us individually. That's great. I do see that we've still got 76 people on, so people are still listening. I've got a couple more minutes. So let me go ahead and start with one of the questions for this. Jody, I think this is a good one for you. So what about CPAs feeling concerned about stepping outside their lane? Forecasting CFO services, and I think one part of this is, are there rules or regulations that they should be aware of in doing that?
Yeah, sure. So it's important to have obviously your engagement letter, pretty solid engagement letter explaining that you're a contractor and not an officer of the company, that sort of thing. That's important. That's part of what you'd have them sign as part of their statement of worth and so forth. Stepping out of the lane, I don't think it's as big as a deal as what we think. A lot of times, with a CFO, with a forecasting practice, really only thing you're doing really is, because it's a dynamic forecasting. It's something you're talking about every single week, every other week, once a month. You're talking about your forecast all the time. So it's dynamic and always changing. So it's not one of those things that you put together for a bank, for the next 3 years, here's what it's going to look like. This is truly a forecast that you're looking both on the revenue side as well as the cash side and the balance sheet side. So you can kind of talk with the client and have it set up so that's not set up on non-financials, so that the client can control, the different numbers. Like if I'm setting up a forecast for a client that is a repair shop, I'm going to talk about how many vehicles that client's going to have come through that repair shop each day, the average size of the vehicle, and we're going to talk about that during the meetings, and that's how my revenue on my forecast side is going to be driven. And so when we meet up at the end of the month with the actuals coming through, we're going to talk about why we were off, either good or bad. Hey, we thought we were going to get 10 cars through, we only got 5 cars through. Do you think that's going to be something that's going to be a trend, or was that an exception? And we adjust the forecast accordingly. So I think it's more of a hey, just walking through them, working with the client, just as if you were the owner of the company. That's kind of what you'd be doing as the owner anyways. You'd be stepping inside and trying to figure out exactly how your company ticks. And that's kind of what our forecast is. It's there to really show them not only, again, on the revenue side, but more importantly, the cash side.
Yeah, I would say, well, one pro tip from the liability side, don't be a signer on any of your clients' bank accounts. So if they say, hey, in order to get you online access, don't do that. But other than that, to Jody's point, I think you're probably giving that advice away for free anyway. It's more about bottling it up and creating a system around it. And so for our CFOs that are on staff, I think what really made a big impact on not feeling like you're outside of your lane was creating an agenda. Not super rigid, but an agenda of talking points for different types of meetings. So we have a different type of meeting once a week, and then we kind of have an outline for the purpose and who's supposed to be on that call. And it's really a conversation. And we tell the clients too. I think that's the other thing too, is like early on, we would tell clients, hey, we're going to meet and we're going to tell you all these great things. And it was the Jody show, which sucked, because then you feel like all this pressure of everything you've got to do. Whereas if you just tell the client up front, like, my role is to listen and share, and for us to have a collaborative conversation, I think that just kind of sets the stage and takes the pressure off you as well. So the agenda, and then being upfront with the client that it's not show and tell every week for you.
Correct.
We lose Tom.
I think we might have. So what do you use cash flow forecasting for clients, Adam? What do we use for forecasting software in our cash flow software?
Yeah, we use Finagraph. It's actually a cash flow tool is what we're using for that. And so we do a lot of our short-term cash flowing with that. It works with QBO and QuickBooks Desktop. Otherwise, we kind of revert to something that looks very similar to it, an internal Excel tool that we've built. But the automation tool of Finagraph has been amazing. Clients really like it. They can touch it, and it solves for a lot of the problems that we have in Excel. So great tool, and highly recommend it.
Here's a good question, Adam. I'll let you field this one. How were you able to sell a $60,000 annual commitment to a prospect after a single video call?
It kind of sells itself. So again, I think it's about setting the tone at the beginning, having somewhat of those price ranges on your website, if that's how they're coming to you, or prepping whoever your referral sources are. Like we have an attorney that, they're like, yeah, I already talked to the attorney. They said you are all very expensive, but I should talk to you. So it's like, good for them. So setting that tone early on, that this isn't bench.co. Like, we're not doing after the fact accounting. So I think it was, whenever you're explaining what you're going to solve for them and how you're going to be working with them, there is a slide that I go through whenever I'm talking to CPA firms where I kind of walk through the fractional piece of having a CFO, controller, accountant, bookkeeper, and a tax person, and how that costs this much money, and we can do it all fractionally. So for those clients, if you have that like 5-minute analogy or conversation with them, just to kind of set the tone that for 60 grand, they're getting basically 4 people and a firm to do all that kind of stuff, assuming you're going to do the tax work or whatever. It's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it's pretty cheap. And if you give people the ability to play at their own price, even if they can't afford 60, you scale back what you're going to do for them, and you can get them for 30, and you get a pretty light client for what other people are maybe charging 10 for. So
here's another one. Are you selling a virtual CFO starter package, or is it training? So do we have a training coming up here?
Yeah, so here in probably the end of July, we're going to do a training course. It's going to be like a 6-week training course, and it's going to be more group oriented. So more information to come on the Slack channel with that. And then in terms of the training, the difference between that and the training is the class is more instructional, and then the training is more one-on-one. So it's more about you than it is us. And we'll walk through and build out your business plan. We'll also look at your pricing, build out your pricing tool, the services you want to offer, figure out what niche you're going to kind of double down into, and also kind of walk through some of the tools and training on that as well. We've got a DevOps team that's pretty amazing and supportive there, like how to build out the forecast and that kind of stuff. So it's a lot more custom and hands-on. So 2 options there.
Okay, and then let's see here. Looking through all the, it looks like, oh, can you talk about CPA, stepping outside, okay, I already talked about that, sorry. I'm confused about my question above. How many clients can one of your virtual CFOs serve? And are you looking for us to sell the virtual CFO service? And your team at Summit would do the work?
So that's a different service we offer. And before we were doing the coaching and training, we were doing solely CPA firm augmentation. So what we heard from a lot of CPA firms that we were working with is they couldn't find the talent. So they couldn't find those senior accountants and the back office people to deliver the service. They had the relationship with the client, but they could do the talking, but they didn't really have the structure or the team behind them. So what we did was we came up with the CPA firm augmentation service that if you have a client that you still want to be the go-to person for, like if you don't want anything to do with them, like I just don't like the trucking industry, don't want to deal with it, you can, we have a referral relationship and a revenue share for that as well. But if you still want to be the VCFO, what happens is our team kind of surrounds you, and it's almost like you're on our team as well. So all that training that we talked about, we would, that's part of that process as well. You get 25%, we get 75%. And if there's something that you want in particular that you just want to, like some people have a tax practice and they say, well, carve taxes out of that completely. We carve the tax out, you have the tax, and then we do 75-25 split on the remainder of it. But what happens there is our team does basically the majority of the work. You're the architect. You still have to deliver the financials and kind of oversee stuff. You're the advisor, but you're also kind of coming into our system. So you join our other CFOs, and if you have questions or issues, like they're your support system too for working through client issues. So it's almost like you're a team member of Summit CPA if you go the staff augmentation work that route.
Yeah, so it's curious, what's your engagement letter look like if the scope can change month to month? Is it an evolving document, or are engagements month to month, week to week, 1 year?
Perpetual. And so we typically do not make clients re-sign the engagement letter. We even say like there's a fee increase, that kind of a thing in there so that we don't have to mess with that. The only time whenever we change the engagement letter is whenever they change a level or a service line. And so we made the process so easy that all of our CFOs, who are great, they can identify, hey, client needs us to pick up the AP. They're trying to cut costs. They want to get rid of their internal bookkeeper, or XYZ doesn't want to do payroll anymore. They'll go in, price it out, tell a client, hey, it's going to be an extra $300 a week. We have a fee change channel within our Slack. They'll go in there, let our firm administrator know next week, change the price. We can quickly go into, we use PandaDoc, a lot of times I see also like Practice Ignition is a big one for a lot of CPA firms. We just go in there, make a quick tweak, send it back out to the client, get the e-signature, and go from there. So perpetual, we only change it if they want to upgrade or downgrade their service.
And then any thoughts on the E-Myth accounting book?
I think it's great. I mean, that's kind of Jody and I talk that it's kind of at least the foundation of our thought process whenever we were kind of putting together our firm. And we also used it for whenever we would work with our clients, we'd take that same philosophy. So it was kind of dual purpose. I mean, obviously the one for accountants is more focused on us, but we used E-Myth Revisited is the one that we kind of used for us internally and also externally for our clients. There's a lot of great books like that though.
And then do you have a training starting sooner or online? Do you have a link we can see and review?
So Kelly, our marketing director, will probably be getting something out with the holiday coming up. I don't know if it'll be this coming week or the week after, but we'll have something online here soon, and then we'll promote it also in the Slack community as well.
And then can a virtual CFO or controller service be right sized for a sole proprietorship?
Yeah, like if you just wanted to do it yourself and not have any employees, is that kind of what you're hearing there, Jody?
I don't know if it's with the client or necessarily with the employee. It could be both.
Oh, like if so you're saying like if your client base is super small,
Yeah, I think so.
VCFO would be, I mean, like I said, I think you can make money doing just about anything if you specialize in it. So kind of like 401k audits, most people will tell you you don't make any money doing 401k audits. Well, you can if you specialize in it. Same with payroll. Hate payroll, never will do payroll, but I know some firms that make a lot of good money off of doing payroll. So I think that it can be. It's just the level of engagement is different, because the problem sometimes with sole proprietors is even though they're smaller and they don't have the budget, they also ask a lot of questions. So you have to really I think that one you have to have more of a rigid offering for those folks than you would something that's a little bit more agile for a bigger organization.
Yeah, and then I'd say the last one, how do you prevent scope creep?
Good question. I don't know. We'll let you know in about 20 years when we retire. No, it's really, I think, the onboarding process. So one thing that we did not talk about and is extremely important to our delivery is onboarding. And so what we learned early on was to get from 0 to 60 as fast as possible. We double our fee for the first 6 to 8 weeks of every engagement. We bring a separate team on and we set the tone early. We set the tone early on what we do and what we don't do. Whenever we put together the SOW, we're very explicit on what we don't do. And then we tell the client, like, hey, we've been doing this a long time. This is our process. This is what we do. And then you have to be, and then also in the sales process, you have to be careful not to sell somebody a smaller service because of the price point, knowing that they're going to lean on you for the bigger one. I mean, I think that was an early mistake we made too.
Yeah, and I'd say our virtual CFO service, outside of the accounting where it's pretty simple, we're going to do payables or not do payables, we're going to do cash flow management or not, those are pretty basic ones, and scope creep never happens there because it's a flip of the switch, yes or no, and then they're charged the price. The other thing would be on the virtual CFO service, part of it, it's really unlimited. We don't have any scope creep in there because they can give us really whatever they want. If we want to help them with a merger and acquisition, we're doing that. We're helping with their bank relations. We're helping build a profit sharing plan. We're helping them do everything with that virtual CFO. So there's really no scope creep necessarily in the virtual CFO. Our issue, like Adam mentioned, was the controllership level. It's not as strategic, and so it's more month-end stuff. We're doing, putting the financials, putting the forecasts together. We're not meeting with them as often as we would be in the virtual CFO. So the scope creep would come in where we're meeting with that client on a regular basis, and they ask us, hey, can you put a profit sharing plan together? The way that we've handled that is we just simply say, yep, and we flip them over to, we get our pricing sheet out, flip them to the virtual CFO for a 2-month period. And so now they're paying a higher price for 2 months for us to handle something that may be outside the scope of the controller level service. And we find that works out really well. And I think that ends all the different things that we've got here for you. Again, if you have any questions, we had one, hey, can you share this Excel spreadsheet? Yeah, just send us an email. We'll hop on a quick call and we can kind of walk you through that if you're interested. But we definitely will be covering that for sure when we put together our 6-week course. We'll cover you how to use it and stuff like that and let you walk away with it. So that would definitely be part of that. So again, I want to appreciate everybody hanging on. It's like, I think we had over half the people are still here that started, which is pretty awesome. Appreciate it. Definitely join the Slack group. Don't let that opportunity go away. This is the last time we're actually offering a free thing for it. After this, it'll be a $29 a month value for it. So this is like your last chance to do that one. And a lot of great questions, a lot of great conversation there. So again, appreciate all of the time, and thanks Adam, thanks Kelly for putting this together. And fortunately, Tom had to drop off for a meeting, but we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.